Hey, everybody, welcome to the Grow Yourself podcast. I'm your host, Kevin McNulty, and this is your personal development school of growth, where each week my guests and I will bring and break down big ideas and practices that will help you learn, grow, and succeed in life. Thanks for checking us out. Now let the growth begin. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Grow Yourself. But I got to say, it's not just another, it's a special. Frankly, it's part of a very short holiday series that honestly just at the last minute decided that I wanted to do, still with the purpose that is behind Grow Yourself, which is to help us all learn, grow, and change and improve even a little bit. But this is a very special episode because I'm here with four of my good friends to talk about a very special subject that is both hard, but also, I promise you, when you hear from them, it'll be a beautiful thing. Christmas is often called the season of joy, and we see it in the lights and the music and the gatherings. And I see it starting in July when my wife starts to decorate for Christmas. And the gatherings and we hold the traditions that are dear, where everybody has different traditions. And yet for many people, this is a season that carries something else, and that is maybe a quiet ache or a quiet pain, an empty chair, a memory that feels closer this time of year, I guess is the way to say that. And that is, grief. Grief has a way of showing up uninvited during the holidays. It doesn't cancel our faith. It doesn't cancel, it doesn't mean something is broken in us. It simply reminds us that love runs deep. So today's conversation is not just about fixing grief or rushing past it or any of those things. It's about making space, making, yeah, space for it, allowing it to be there for a lot of different reasons. It's about hope that doesn't deny pain and faith that meets us right where we are. At Christmas, we remember that God didn't remain distant from human suffering. He stepped into it. You know, uh, God is with us. So my hope is that this conversation offers a gentle encouragement, that it reminds us we're not alone, and that even in the season of loss, the light still shines in the darkness, as they say. So my very special guests are first Bethel Stevens. She was on a podcast with me only probably less than a year ago, and she brings a very interesting a view on grief because well, I don't want to spoil it, let her tell you, but she also wrote a book about it, and we're going to talk about that. And then my old friend John Bentley, who lost his daughter many, many years ago and created a foundation behind it. And then Gloria Christy, I consider her my spiritual mentor. I've learned so much from her about my own faith, and we spent 10 years together in a Sunday school class. And so she most recently lost her husband about a year ago, and it was very sudden. It was tragic. And then I can say this here. I think everybody would be okay with it. I saved the best for last, and that is that my dear wife, Jane McNulty, is here, who really had a very, very compounding loss a few years ago with both her mother and her brother in the same year, but also not so far apart before Christmas. So I just want to, first of all, say thank you to everybody for being with me here on Grow Yourself. And honestly, I this is so special. And I just thank you for your vulnerability and for your, um, for just being here with us and sharing your story with our listeners. So maybe I'll just go ahead and start with you, Bethel, if you don't mind. You know, Bethel, feel free to tell us who you are. I mean, the audience who you are, but also about your loss and a little bit about, how your loss, how you describe your loss.
Sure. And thank you, Kevin, for having me. It's good to be on your podcast again. So my name is Bethel Stevens, and I lost my husband in June of 2021. So just 4.5 years now. And it was very difficult for me. I was 33 years old, and it really threw my life into complete, disarray. Because you're thinking this isn't supposed to happen at a high level. Yes, I understand there's a cycle of life, there's the natural progression. But my husband um became ill very early on. Less than 2 months after our wedding, and it was a terminal cancer diagnosis. It took about 5 years, but I slowly had to, watch him deteriorate. And when he finally passed, it shook my faith, my very foundation of what I thought was supposed to happen. And
Right.
it took me a couple of years just to find my footing. I questioned faith. I questioned all of my beliefs entirely, and I would journal. And as I started to get back a little bit to myself and figure out, okay, actually my life is different. It's not what I thought, but there's still life to be lived, and I can still reimagine the journey. And that's when I started writing it. I would write about not just the story of his name is David, not just our story, but my transformation process and the things that I learned. And we met right before the book came out, and you allowed me to share more about the book. And
Yes.
so here it
There it
is.
is. And we're going to, not a
Um,
Cinderella story. It's so
not a
beautiful.
Cinderella
And we're going
story.
to ask you more about the book and some of the things, the lessons that you had. John, may I move up to you there, brother, and tell us about your loss, please? You're on mute there, John.
My loss, which is now celebration, was my daughter Natalie at 28 years of age. She passed away from complications of prescription drug addiction on December the 11th of 2010, which was also my second marriage wife, Laura, our anniversary. So that there's some nuances there of how grief played out and how do we or don't we celebrate our anniversary. And then for 8 years, I was walking around in the desert. I poured myself into what made me feel valuable. My work, became a workaholic, and I turned to emotional eating and gained 50 pounds. And then a great friend of mine, Kevin McNulty, just asked me to write a letter to my future self. So on December the 11th, 2018, I wrote a letter and dated it December the 11th, 2023. And Kevin reminded me that to share the message and that people would come alongside me and want to help me and see the vision that God had put in my heart. And on December the 11th, 2023, we had stood up our foundation to raise money to help moms overcome prescription drug addiction. We also published the book, You Are a Gift. And now that's led to me getting to share my message of hope and celebration when you do lose someone, and that grief doesn't necessarily always end. It has its cycles because there's times I have my moments. But the important thing for me to remember that Natalie was a gift, and gift stands for God's image, fulfilled talent. And that's the title of the book, You Are a Gift. And the foundation is also You Are a Gift. And so we just go around now helping people recognize there's God designed them with gifts they have that only they can use to serve others. And when they do that, they further the kingdom of God and have purpose.
Oh, so beautiful. Yeah, so beautifully said. Thank you. And now, my friend Gloria, could you please share with us
Well,
your
first of
loss?
all, my birthday is December 11th, too.
Oh my.
So that's interesting. I popped, oh, whoa. Well, um, what happened, my husband and I, we're a second marriage for both of us, and we had uh, built a family together and a community. A lot of our work in the community
Yeah.
related to to music festivals and also our work with the homeless population, and also we with addiction as well. We were involved with and some of you that are in addiction programs. We worked 14 years with Celebrate Recovery, and if you're familiar with that. We were in leadership there, and for a number of years, we were all about trying to help others. That because God put us together, and we feel like that was more than just as a married couple. Well, from the get-go, Tom and I were, you know that, Kevin, we were always about working in the community, always about giving ourselves to others. And the very day that he had the accident, it was a very strange day. He had gone around all around into the community and just plant like he was. He always was a very joyful person, and of course this was during Thanksgiving, so he was around visiting people and talking to folks, and he was a musician, so he went to one of our friends, Chris Warren, and they played the guitar together, and then the next thing I know, he was home. Well, I had gotten home a little earlier, but it had already gotten dark because it was November, and the time had not yet changed, but it was still very dark. And he had left the truck out because he thought we might go to the movie. And I had sat down on the couch and just sat there for a moment, and he never came back. And I thought, well, gosh, this is an awfully long time to him to be out there just still moving the truck and backing up into the carport. So I walked outside and went down the steps, which we have about 10 steps, and I found him at the bottom of the steps. And he was really pretty much gone by that time. I mean, he hit the back of his head, and he later, 4 days later, succumbed to a skull fracture. So I hear all of you guys talking about things that, the suddenness of it all, the ache of it all. Where do you go from here? And Kevin knows me well enough that I have to find that path. I literally had to find that path immediately, because we have a photography studio. People can't depended on us. In fact, he was supposed to be Santa the next day at our store, and people were depending on us to be available for these children. I mean, I know that may sound silly, but we're pretty conscientious family when it comes to business. So there I was, just stuck in the middle of this sudden thing that happened, and not really understanding. I don't know if you guys have experienced that. Just the immediately thing. And I think our culture kind of does this, because all of a sudden you go through, I don't care who, or at least I do. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you can correct me, but there's something that what did I do wrong? Did I do something wrong?
Yeah.
Because I didn't, that morning he wanted me to kiss him goodbye. I didn't kiss him goodbye. There's that.
Yeah.
And then, all day long he was calling me, he came, brought me lunch, and he was just the most kind person, and always very thoughtful, and just a great partner. I mean, he was just always thinking about me.
You guys were 24/7 together. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen either one of you without the other.
Well, that was what I was about to say. From the time we got married in 1991 until that night, I can count on maybe less than 10 times I was ever away from him at night. We just constantly talked, constantly decided what we were going to do, and we were usually conspiring something together for the community. That's what we did. And now I don't have that, but Kevin, I agree with all you guys that God put us here for a reason. He did not make a mistake. That was my first encounter with the Holy Spirit, for him to say, look, you did not, this is for a reason. And that's so, so thank you.
No, it's beautiful to hear you speak about Tom, and I knew Tom very, very well, as did James.
Yeah, he did. So, he loved you, Kevin.
Did. So now, my dear wife, please share.
Well, my biggest loss was very natural. Was my mother, and she and I were one. We as many of us are with our mothers, and of course she was older, and it was expected, and all of those things. But the thing I shared the most with my mother was music. And
Mm.
what I do in my life every day is music. So, but what kind of threw a wrench in was 4 months later, actually today is the anniversary, my brother was found dead in his home unexpectedly, and that was tragic. And we don't fully understand what took him. He lived alone. He was not married. And so for me, the grieving process got very confused and tangled. And I don't even know if I'd started the grieving of my mother. And here comes my brother, and
Right.
and it was complicated, and the estate and the remaining siblings, and it just got very. I felt like my grieving for my mother was placed on hold, and it
Mhm.
took a very long time. And Kevin and I actually experienced 4 deaths in 2021. His father, my mother, my brother, we just it was just every 4 months.
Your aunt, yeah.
And we spent most of 2022 just trying to put ourselves straight.
Yeah.
But I think that the morning of my mother, I just never felt, and maybe we never feel like we've completed it. Even yesterday, I was doing a church program, and that's church music is what we
Yeah.
shared the most.
Yeah.
And the first thing I thought of when I finished was, I'm going to go call my mom, and tell her what
Yeah.
And so, for Christmas, I know you're getting to this, Kevin, but for Christmas, it's especially hard because everything's music for me.
Yeah.
It's all about the music.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
to me, it was just the tangling of the two
Yeah.
deaths shared together.
But I can also speak, very briefly about your from an observation standpoint with your mother that, I mean, you all spoke every day and
Yeah.
you just always talked about, and she was your biggest cheerleader and was always she was so proud of you, and so the one thing I will say also that I'll never forget that you said was it was after your brother died, and you started crying, and I wanted to console you, and you said, Kevin, I don't even know who I'm crying for. I don't, it really struck me that how complicated that was. So anyways, well, listen, thank you all for sharing that. I would like to, in fact, ask, and I'm not going to really kind of go around. Please jump in and, but about loss and grief during the holiday season, particularly around this holiday season. What is why is it so particularly hard around this time of year? I guess is a question.
I'm going to start because I think that Christmas is a yardstick for life.
Oh, I see.
We measure life by Christmas. A year ago, Christmas. By next Christmas,
Mhm.
I'll do this, and
That's
I'll
correct.
remember the
Yeah.
Christmas when our children were young, or we measure our life by Christmas. So everything bubbles up, memories and good feelings and all that sentiment.
Well, hey, the whole world measures it. It's 2025.
Yeah.
So
Right. Yeah.
I mean, it's been documented with
Yeah.
2025 years ago. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
But
yeah.
is it the emotions that, that we feel? I know during Christmas time, I get pretty, I get kind of mushy and, and,
Mhm.
and feel sentiments and love good, beautiful music and stuff. And is that part of it, Bethel?
I think for me, it's things slow down, right?
Okay. Oh,
Um, Usually Christmas, I go home to my family in Atlanta. I live in Washington, D.C. And yes, I lost a husband who I would have been with on a
right.
daily basis, but there's so many distractions on the day to
Mhm.
day. There's
I
there's
see.
work, there's other responsibilities, and holidays you slow down.
Mm,
Businesses are closed. You're with your family around the table, and everybody's
mm.
supposed to be there,
Right.
right? And
Right. Yeah.
you get bombarded with the absence. It's just much more heightened, I think, because you try to surround yourself with the people you love at a holiday like Christmas.
Boy, that's so well said. What say you, John?
Well, for me, there was a lot of personal tragedy that seemed to go on during the holiday time for me, even before Natalie had passed away, being separated and then going through a divorce, or seeing family members not showing up for holidays because one was mad at the other. And then, the talk around the table was about what's wrong with so and so. And I just wanted to get away from that. And I'll share this that I've really only told a couple of people is in my heart, I wanted to bring Natalie home. I wanted to bring her in our house. So Alex was 4, and when she would go into rehab, which seemed to always be around the holiday season, Alex would be sent to Louisiana to be with family. And I wanted to bring him home, but I'll share the power of this for those that are listening and watching.
Alex is her.
Natalie's son. Yes, or
Correct,
my
yes.
grandson.
Yeah.
The mind is so powerful that I told a story in my mind, and I've never even shared this with my wife, Laura. I thought that if I asked her, could I bring Natalie home, she would tell me no, because Natalie's a drug addict. But I never asked that question. And that led to, through those holiday seasons, a lot of regret and guilt on,
Right.
not that I could have saved Natalie at all,
Right.
but just suffering in silence was what I was good at. And when you do reach out to people, most people have not gone through what I'd gone through, and they didn't know how to communicate or ask questions, which is something you did very well, Kevin. Very early on, you showed me empathy. And then my mentor, Ann Minton, who was a second mother to me, at first I took this wrong. She said, John, you'll never get over it. And then she paused, and I thought, well, why are you saying that? And then she put her arms around me and hugged me and said, it's okay. And so, just thinking about that now, that when I have those moments, it's okay. It's okay. What has come out of this that is good, that we can focus on, and again celebrate Natalie's gifts, that even in her darkest hours she was feeding people, keeping their family, keeping their children for other families, and not asking for money, and just doing for people. So her gifting was service and helping others. And that's what I tend to focus on now.
That's beautiful. Yeah, I would like to ask, and it doesn't have to necessarily fit to this time of year, but what is the hardest part of loss? And I mean, I've lost too, but so I could assume your answer, but I'm not going to. What is the hardest part of loss? But even more, um, how did you reconcile that challenge that you had? How did you move past it?
I'm not sure I have. The reason I say that is the very place where it happened, the accident happened. I have a very difficult time going back there.
Yeah.
I am still staying with my kids, which I try really hard to go back. We loved our home. I still love my home. I love the memories that were there. I go in there and sit in the same sofa where we'd sit every night and we'd pray right there in that same place. And I think that's the hardest part, y'all. And when you talk about loss, I don't know what to do with myself now. I had my last 33 years were all around, get up the next morning and what are we going to do today for the Lord, And now, I mean, I don't not do that now. I'm still searching every single morning, praying and believing God for the next moment. I knew I have, but saying that, go when you say what is that routine of getting up and being together in the morning. And I'll just be honest with you, Kevin, I was in love with my husband. I had a bad experience the first time. I had a drug addict husband the first time, and he died. He died in 2001. But I was crazy about this man who we could just converse, be honest with each other, no matter what. Yeah. Sometimes we would bicker, and Kevin, how we would kind of bicker sometimes. But
you usually win the fight, but okay, yeah.
That's right. But that's the part
Mhm.
that I really am. My dilemma is, what do I my kid well what do I do with the next phase of my life? Do I sell my house? Do I do this? Do I do?
Mm.
And I'm not young, I'm old. And so
Yeah.
I'm at the point where I have wonderful kids. Don't get me
Yeah.
wrong. I have my two kids and his two kids, but absolutely fabulous.
Mhm.
And Ben and Will have
Yeah.
just been wonderful to
Amazing.
take.
Yeah.
They have
Amazing.
yeah.
Oh, yeah. Mhm.
So I don't know what to do, but I
Well,
do identify with the guilt thing.
yes.
I do
Yes.
identify with that.
And I would just maybe jump over to you, Bethel, before you mention what it is that you struggle the most. But maybe, because some time has passed and it was your husband, that you can share
Mhm.
with Gloria, maybe just what you did. I mean, I'm not trying to make this prescriptive or anything like that, but
Right.
what, did you eventually decide where do I go now? What do I do now?
Yeah. All of those questions. And because as Gloria knows, when you lose a husband, there's all the secondary losses, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But I
Yeah,
think,
that's correct.
yeah. Um,
Financial would be one.
and
I gotta
identity,
shake your head.
right? Gloria, I don't know how you felt, but
Identity. Yes.
the first time I had to check widow, it was so hard, right?
Mm,
You have to
Mhm.
self-identify as a completely different thing.
mm,
Mhm.
So it's so many things where once you go through it the first time, it doesn't completely throw your day or week, but it doesn't
mm,
necessarily make it easy, right? And I'm
mm,
gonna go back to what John said because I thought that was spot on. The
Yeah.
hardest part is that it will never go away, right?
mm,
Mhm.
That's the hardest part, that no matter how many years it is, and it's gonna constantly take intentional work to wake up and say, I'm gonna
Amen.
celebrate the gift, right? So you can reframe it in your mind and change your perspective, but that ache of absence will
mm,
always be there. The only thing you
yeah.
can do is frame it in a way that instead of it completely hijacking your emotions, that you can
Mhm.
cry it out, take a minute, take a
Mm,
breath, right? Feel the feelings,
mm,
and then focus on the thing you want to replace it with. Replace it, I mean, that negative emotion is gonna come, right? No
yeah.
matter how long it's gonna be.
Yeah.
But then you're gonna take that energy and transform it into something else so you can say, no, I use that to create something positive and I'm going to create a positive
Yeah.
emotion. But the hardest part is you're going to constantly need to do
Yeah.
that for as long as you
To
live.
John's point, it's just not going to go away. Jane, I've heard you say this many times
Mhm.
that there are times that you've said I feel it is strong now. I mean, not maybe all day long, but there's moments that you would share with me that
It's
I feel it
grief
is.
is
Yeah.
so amazing. You know how it just takes over a moment.
Mm,
Mhm.
And there are times now when I will search for the memory and take comfort in it.
mm,
And that was a wonderful thing when that shift happened, when I could
Mhm.
just just look for a moment. I mean, and just be in it. But I wanted to ask, and Kevin, I hope this doesn't take us too far off,
yeah.
but I'm listening to you all, and I have a student. I teach, and I teach a lot of people in their 70s, and I have a student.
Music, piano, and such. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm,
she's a piano student,
mm,
and she lost her mother, natural causes, in May,
Mhm.
and then within 2 weeks, her son had a heart
oh,
attack
yeah.
and passed, and a month later, his son was in a car accident and was killed.
Wow.
And so she shows up every week for lessons, and I've said to her, what can I do? I don't
Yeah.
know what to say. I think she's the matriarch of the family. So she's holding it together. She's
Wow.
holding her
Yeah.
son's widow together. I mean, there's so much loss. But if if I can take anything from this today in I don't know how can I maybe there's nothing I can do to help her. I try to let her speak, I mean, if she wants, a lot of my classes, we end up just as, counseling sessions for each other. We've known each other for so long, but it's so profound. I can't even imagine.
I think actually you've brought something very important to the table, and it actually was something I was thinking about asking. But please share, maybe to Jane's point, whether it's responding to her, or just about what you know what people can say and do. I think it's hard for everyone, but from a personal perspective, what would you say? How you help people, or what do you say to them? Those sorts of things.
John,
Um,
I wonder, John, I could remember the day that I learned of I remember we were
mhm.
in the car and sitting outside of Walgreens. And Kevin, you were speaking and you told him, and I'll never forget that. But I can't imagine the loss of a child.
Yeah,
And,
that's right.
and so I've had several students now that have lost children tragically. And I search for the right thing. And I read something, all you can say is, I'm sorry,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
I want to help my
yeah.
friends.
Well, and again, because I don't want to pigeonhole you all and to say, well, do this, or maybe something that you think's obvious, but maybe just share about that. How, you know, um, just anything that you can share that might help people figure out how to, or at least think about how
Well,
you
I
help
think the
somebody with
model
grief. Yeah.
is how someone has treated us.
The what?
The model,
Oh,
is how in our grief experience, what has helped us feel safe and the soothing. You're not when you're in such grief and you're crying. My tears were crying tears. I mean,
mm,
I
mm,
felt like I couldn't quit sobbing.
mm,
And when when you find that there is really somebody's presence, just being there helps
mm.
an awful lot. Just letting you be you and
Yeah.
not trying to be not be critical of anything at all. You just be there.
Mm.
But that's been the when I take lessons from those people who have I think and maybe you all have experienced this. What I don't understand is the disenfranchisement of some people
Mm.
that like to distance themselves from your pain, and because they can't identify with it, or if
Oh,
they
interesting.
just leave, they just
Mm.
leave you alone, like you're, yeah, I don't
Mm.
know, especially if you're a woman
Yeah.
and you have lost your husband.
Wow.
It seems like, I don't know, you may have experienced this, Bethel, that you not only do you feel a new identity, but you feel like you're kind of damaged goods. Does that
Wow.
make you sense? Does that make sense?
Wow. I've never
Oh,
heard
Hadn't
it
thought
can,
about
this.
that.
and I
Yeah.
would and not be familiar with this had I not been a divorced person,
Okay.
because that whole thing came flooding back to me.
I see.
Oh, this is the way I felt in 1981.
Very
Mm.
interesting.
And the worst part, let me tell you, y'all know this, the church is the worst.
Mm.
You walk in, they don't know what to
Mm.
say.
Yeah.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
but that's
I
just
mean, yeah. So Bethel, it
me
sounds like
and
this
not
is
know
definitely
Yes,
how to.
resonating with you. Oh, she's got something to say
so
here.
many thoughts, Gloria, because yes, all everything
Yeah,
you said was true for me. A lot of people would reach out
yeah,
right after the funeral and then disappear. And what I found is that the people in the church, people in my Bible study group, God bless
yeah.
them, but they will
Hmm.
send a text message with a
Mm.
Mhm.
Bible verse, and it was as if that would absolve them of like anything else that
Yeah,
required
Yeah.
presence,
yeah,
right? And so what I
yes,
found
Wow.
yes.
helpful was, and
Mhm.
the answer I think is there is nothing, there's no magic word that anybody has
That's
to
correct.
take away
Mhm.
the pain of loss. There's
Mm.
nothing. And when you remove the burden of knowing there's actually nothing I can say here,
Wow.
and then focus on just being, like Gloria already said, the friend that helped me the most, she she flew to me and just said, we don't need to talk about anything. I just tell me what you need me to do. Should I walk the dog? Should I do this? Tell me what you need.
Oh, wow.
Right? So she didn't have the burden of I need the right thing to say or the right
Yeah.
Bible verse.
Sure.
And
No,
that
that's
was
beautiful.
so
Pressure
helpful.
on you right there.
Yeah.
That takes pressure off of everybody, I guess. John, what was your experience? And then Jane.
Well,
About this.
for me, it was the childhood growing up that I'm not good enough, I'm a failure, and this is a real big failure. I'm reminded, and
Wow.
Jane, I don't know if this is helpful. 2 or 3 things are popping through my mind. One person called me, and I wasn't expecting any phone calls from anybody on the 11th. I posted it's our 26th wedding anniversary, and then I posted another one about Natalie. And about 9:30 at night, I get a phone call from a guy in Decatur. He said, "Just saw both your posts. I'm just calling to check on you. How you doing, buddy?"
That's right.
And that turned it into an hour and a half conversation, not about Natalie, not about anniversary, just talking about life as 2 men, as 2 fathers. And then I'm sitting here thinking that I wish someone would have asked me. Now this just happened right now. Hey, what's one question you wish someone would ask you about the death of Natalie?
Yeah, that's good. That's a good response.
Or another question might be, and someone has asked me about this, what's your fondest memories of Natalie, John? And one is I miss now, Dad. I miss that when I would do something that stupid or seemed odd or I was talking crazy. And then I loved her humor as a child because she was so naive. Her and Grandma were getting dressed to go shopping. We're visiting grandparents in Georgia, and Grandma sprinkled baby powder in her undies. Well, Natalie comes running out, and me and Grandpa are spraying 7 dust on tomato plants. And Natalie goes, "Papa, what's that dust?" "Well, sweetheart, it's going to make sure that the bugs don't eat the plants and we can enjoy our tomato sandwiches." And Natalie goes, "You probably already know. Grandpa, does Grandma have fleas?" So I think sometimes getting people to talk about their fondest memories puts that joy and peace back in there.
That's right.
And it helps us celebrate that person.
Gosh, that would I can honestly say I don't know that would have crossed. I don't think.
Well,
that's ever crossed my mind. Please.
I think what happens is I don't like. I'm afraid to bring out the emotion of that person in that moment, but that's
right.
my problem. So,
Mm-hmm.
maybe it's remembering and saying, Bethel, how I know it's been a few years, but tell me something about your husband at Christmas, and not my fear. It's my fear of thinking if I say to her, Diane, how are you doing? This is a difficult time. I mean, or whatever, that because I know when I was in the midst of my grief, I would sob. That's the only word for it. You would sob.
That's right.
And I can't be afraid of that. Okay, so she's going to sob. I'm being a friend by asking her, you know what I'm saying? But you kind of are afraid. You don't, maybe if I don't say anything, they won't cry, or maybe it'll be,
Yeah, I see.
Well, and I'm wondering, would it be okay to share that? And this may be something I try in the future is, I really want to ask you, how are you doing? But I'm having emotions myself. Because I think the one thing I've learned through the death of Natalie, the death of my dad, and now the death of my mom a couple of years ago is I've got to be both physically and emotionally present with the people that I love and that I want to solve their problems and I can't versus running from it.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow.
Because that's what I would do. So I'm learning how can I be both physically and emotionally present with people, even though it's that emotional piece is uncomfortable for me.
Wow.
Or maybe for them. To
yes,
whether you ask permission or can we,
that was what I was going to say.
Can we talk about your son?
Yes.
And
would it be a good time? Sometimes it might not be a good time.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I know that's one of the things that we are so busy and we think that there's all this stuff that we need to do, check off the list and do during the day. But if I do appreciate folks that may just pick up the phone and call me and say what you're saying. Is it a good time? I've just been thinking
Yes.
about you.
Yeah.
Are you okay? Or I know you've been going through this is a rough season for you. And talking to you guys, I would ask that too. This question: what are you doing in this moment, in this season, for to help um, to help bring the joy back? Is it
Mhm.
something specific,
I
or
love that question.
some kind of is there some kind of formula here that we go through, or even worse, is there not a formula and we think there is? I mean,
Mm.
that was me last year. I
Yeah.
thought, wait a minute, I've been through I've been through a death of all these my parents and my death of my ex-husband, and now this. Uh,
Mm.
and I've had in also uh, there's addiction problems in our family too.
Mm.
So what do I do with this? Where am I gonna? Bethel, did you just get really just like feel like that you were just you're waving your hands trying to find the next thing to do to kind of get normal back? That's what I'm trying to say. Is there normal again? And especially when you have to move on and do live life again.
Mm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. And to me, it's coming to terms that, normal is not the normal before. It's a completely different
Mm.
exit ramp, right? And
Mhm.
I the feeling of just feeling stuck, I
Mm,
think
mm,
lingered longer when I refused to
Mm.
accept that the road I was currently on was a dead end, right? And
Wow.
when I decided, okay, I have to rethink my life. I have to, figure out what I'm going to do now going forward and not just tread water trying to, make sense of what where I am now. I had to figure out a completely different road. And when I started thinking about, okay, what makes me happy now? What is the thing that I've always wanted to
Mm.
do, right? This is separate from David. What is the thing that I personally didn't even have a chance to do because I was a caretaker all these years? I
Mhm.
gave myself permission to expand, and
Mm.
that allowed me to bring some sort of balance because the loss is the loss. It doesn't go away. I still think about all the things, I still grieve the things I didn't even get to have, if that makes sense, right?
yes,
Yeah.
yes, I
Um,
get it. I get it.
yeah. So,
Mhm.
but now I intentionally also create a life that I want to feel like is meaningful, right? Whether it's the book and right, it's just it takes a lot of work, but that helps balance the scales a little bit.
That's a very beautiful way of saying it, just about just trying to balance the scales. You can't, what are your thoughts, Jane, about that, about this?
Well, yeah, again, I feel like in this moment that I listen to how you all are grieving and who you all are grieving and where they were in your life, and my mother, that was natural. I mean, we all grieve our mothers. My brother wasn't, but
Mm.
my relationship with him was different than my
Mm.
mother.
Mhm.
My mind is going what I would ever do if something happened to Kevin.
Mm.
Yeah.
So you're going back to the gym tomorrow. No I'm kidding. I can't even imagine. And I'm thinking about friends who have lost
Mhm.
children, and
Mhm.
I
Yeah,
just
just
I
close,
just want
immediate.
to
Yeah.
know how, because it never goes away. And I
Yeah.
think the people that I know that have lost children will say that it never ever, it's always very fresh to you.
Yeah.
I
Mhm.
Yeah.
think a
You
parent,
know,
yeah, is different.
yeah, and I mean, I hesitate to say this, but obviously, I mean, you all know this that I wrote a book on major life transitions, and
Mhm.
one of the things that I had that I've been not stuck on, but that I've allowed to enter my thinking when I'm having discussions about this is the idea, and I want to do this briefly because I just have a couple more questions I want to ask. That, the gap between two worlds is about just that. It's the old world and the new world. And even in the book, and even as I discuss it, I always put the loss of a loved one in a different category than any other transition in life. I mean, you can think of the
Sure.
million transitions. Even, and I could say this, Gloria, I have a book here setting that I want to bring to you, but I became aware very early on that, you know, this is not a book I will hand anybody who's lost somebody too soon. It's not even
Mhm.
time to talk about what the
Mhm.
new world looks like. And so one of the founding principles, I guess you could say, or ideas, is that you enter into this gap between the old world and the new world. You can't see the new world. It's too foggy. The old world's gone. Some people end up turning around, and I use the example that I actually saw in a movie or something like this. A lady lost her son, a young boy, and she never changed the room. But
Ah,
every
yeah.
single day for an entire year, she would walk upstairs, she would open the door, she would look at the
Mm,
room and all the trophies and
wow.
everything's there, and then she'd close it. Well, as the movie moved along, at some given point, obviously not obvious, but this is where it would have obviously went. She decided to finally changed the room. And that to me was this idea of looking at the old world and cannot face even moving. I mean, you can't even
Yeah.
turn around,
Yeah.
let alone move through
Yeah.
that zone. And so the idea becomes, which I think is part of the question here, is that, what is that thing that you finally turn? Not even start walking to but you turn and say, okay, I think it's time, to
Yeah.
to move on. I don't even know if I had a question behind that. If you have a comment, but I do want to have another question or two,
I
Well, John, I'd like to know when you're
please.
tell me about when you're because it's been several years now, right? Since she's passed away. Did
Yeah.
you have a moment, a defining moment when you did, or both,
Mm,
maybe both? Y'all
yeah.
can say, is there, because I'm not sure I've got there. The turning place is, I don't know where
Yeah.
that is. I've been trying to just breathe
yeah.
Hmm.
and work and take care of my
Yeah.
grandson, take care of my business, all
No, I
this
think
crazy.
that's a beautiful
And so
question. It really is. John,
I
please,
don't,
and then I want to hear from the others too.
yeah,
Yeah.
because I
A
don't know
great question.
when do you turn, or
Yeah.
what does a turned experience look like? How do
Yeah.
you know that you
That it's
that's what I'd
time.
like. How do you know it's time? There you
Yeah.
go. That's it.
Well, for me, it was when Kevin asked me to write that letter to my future self, um, and
Ah.
and it gave me purpose again versus just wandering around in the wilderness.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm,
where I had regret, where I had guilt, where I had failure, and
mm,
again, I gained 50 pounds. I poured myself into work, so I wasn't even there for my new family.
mm,
Mm-hmm.
So in writing that letter, kind of let me see what the future could look like, and it required me to be present. It required me to ask for help. And one of the things that I started
mm,
doing, even before Kevin suggests write the letter, I started sharing with people how I handle grief
Mm.
mm.
because I like to walk and be alone and think. And I'm just reminding now of when we pulled up to the church for the funeral. My mom had traveled from Georgia to Louisiana with my sister because Natalie was buried in Louisiana. Mom said, "Son, how can I help you today?
Mm.
What can I do for you today?" Mom, I'm glad you asked, and had my sister and my wife Laura with me. I said, "I'm going to get up and walk today. I'm going to look like I'm in pain because I am. Just let me be by myself."
Oh my.
Yeah.
So and they did. They honored me. And then I had
Yeah.
my ex sister-in-law said, "You you don't even look like you're hurting. You're not crying. What's going on with you?"
Oh my.
And I made a
Ouch.
smart comment. I said, "I've always been a little weird, Susan."
Mm.
I just
Yeah.
blurted out.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
so I say that as number one is self-compassion. Be okay that what I'm going through and experiencing is part of the process and love myself. And then, number two is find a purpose to honor those that have gone before us.
Mhm.
Okay.
And
Okay.
even when I'm supervising people, I went to a new job and they had known that, Natalie had passed away on that day. I said, "Hey, I may be a little distant today. No, it has nothing to do with any of you. Don't feel like you can't come talk with me. We'll get through this together. We'll help each other win," is
Right.
what I said.
That's
So,
beautiful. What do you say, Bethel, about that point of recognizing or the timing, when do you make the turn or just say move forward, however you want to say that. What did you experience there?
Yeah, it took me, I want to say a year and a half, close to two. And I would do grief counseling. I had a grief
Mhm.
counselor I would see every week. And like most people, when you're in inner turmoil because losses it does that to you, kind of what Sean described. Um, I didn't care about my appearance. I was just always disheveled. And I went into my weekly session, and one day my counselor goes, Bethel, you should comb your hair.
Oh
And,
my,
and it's
just
funny
straight up.
now, but
It's
Yeah.
it's not like put a bunch of makeup on and and
it's
close.
what
No,
they
how
say.
about just
And I'm
close your
like,
comb your
I
hair?
can't. I need to figure out what I'm gonna do, where I'm gonna go. What
Wow,
should I,
goodness.
be? I was in such chaos. And then she said this to me. For some reason, it made something click. Not right away, but I slept on it, and it slowly, marinated in my brain. She said, Bethel, God can't move a parked car. And
mm,
and
Oh
yeah,
man.
because
Good
for the
point.
longest time, I thought, well, I had prayed for years and this horrible thing happened. I'm just going to sit and wait. I'm just going to sit and wait till
Yeah.
somebody does something,
Oh boy.
to counteract the really, really bad.
Oh my.
Nothing I could do. So I'm just going to sit here and wait. But when
Oh.
he said that, then I realized, oh, wait, it's on me. I have to do something. Even getting up and saying, I am going to, um, you know, be presentable today is
Oh
Right.
something
my.
that I could do, right? But it was baby steps, but it's when I realized, okay, it's up to me. And I put this in the book, and Kevin, we talked about it, and it was a very elementary way of thinking about it, but it helped me is I have options, and I'm at my
Mm,
lowest point right now. Where to next is up to me.
yeah.
I could see how low I could go,
Hmm.
right?
Oh,
I
interesting.
could
Yeah.
just stay where I'm at and just tread water, do the things I have to do, right? Keep the business going, keep work, make sure I still have a job, pay bills, and then sit again in this feeling of, right, what am I doing? What I cannot move past this. I'm just gonna sit and
Wow.
relive it. And then there's like, well, what if there's another option? Is I could get to higher ground. And I say higher ground figuratively, but it just means I could get better. This can be better. It's not going
Mm,
back to what it was, but it can still be better. I don't know what that looks like yet, but once I
mm,
decided, okay, I want better. I don't like this feeling.
yeah.
I can suffer here for years. And there's people who suffer in that place of in between, Kevin, like you described,
Hmm.
Mhm.
years.
For
So it's
years.
almost up to us individually to determine, okay, what is it that I want? And once you make the decision, then you can take the action.
Wow. Boy, that is
Les
so
Brown,
good.
Les Brown is the motivational speaker. He said,
Hmm.
if you can look up, you can get up. So I
Mhm.
had to first see something to work towards because we tend to have the same thoughts on repeat.
Yeah.
So the only way to break out of that is be intentional about wanting something different.
Yeah.
And kind of what John said, making it's not making sense, but finding meaning, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And for me, I felt so alone as a widow. Everybody disappeared. What if I can help the
Mm.
20, 30 something year old who's like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what grief is. I haven't lost anybody else in my life. I'm so confused, and there's nobody else I can talk to. My peers don't understand
No,
what's
no,
going
I
on.
got
So
you.
Yeah.
everybody just avoids me, right? And so I
You
said,
feel isolated. You feel
Mhm.
isolated. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And it's just, okay, well, maybe I can help somebody. Maybe I could do this. And it's
Yeah.
just baby steps. So I wish I could say, well, there's one point in this many months. It's not.
Yeah.
It's
But
Mhm.
so
little
many of
baby
you are
steps.
just, yes, you're describing that so well. And I want to ask you, Jane, also, if there was that time, that you felt like, was there a defining moment that you just decided to pivot? And again, when you're living with somebody, that's one thing, but you did in so many ways live with your mother because again, you all spoke every day. And it was this really ongoing and beautiful relationship that you had. I do want to say before you say that, though, as you all are talking about this, especially what you just said, Bethel, I don't remember who said it, but somebody said the words, if you're going through hell, keep moving. And
Mhm.
and you don't know exactly where you're going, but again, we certainly understand in a time of loss that there's a period of time that you have to pause. I mean, you don't have to pause it. You're gonna pause, period.
Right.
But then at some point, maybe to your words there and others that you may not know exactly where you're going, but just get up. God can't move a parked car. So what do you say, Jane?
Well, I think for me, there was a point where publicly I had to stop grieving. I was
Mm.
embarrassing myself. It
I
always felt like,
remember that. Yeah.
and so I now it's a very personal thing, and of course,
Mm-hmm.
Kevin, you see it sometimes when it
Mm-hmm.
just bubbles over.
Sure.
But and I don't know. This is an interesting question because I don't know which one, either my daughters or you. I was always talking about Nancy. What would
Mm-hmm.
Nancy do? Nancy would have.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nancy would have. And one of you asked me, but what would you do? I,
Mm.
I can't remember who said it, but
Mm.
I think it might have been Christina, but somebody said, "What would you do?"
Mm.
And it kind of shocked me back into, I am something. I felt, oh, here it comes,
Mm.
lost without her.
Mm-hmm.
I've
Yeah.
never
Yeah.
lived
Mm-hmm.
without her. So
Yes. Okay, so let me just for this last short segment here, I want to ask you about your faith and the role it plays. I don't even want to pose a specific question. I want to ask you about your faith and the role it played. One of the things that I heard, I think from at least both of you, is that there was that moment where where you're just like, wow, really, God? I mean, seriously? You just
Yeah.
like that?
Yeah.
But so having said that, though, I do want to know about the role that faith played, and then the second part of this segment, if you will, is offering your thoughts and your beliefs for others as it relates
Mhm.
to their faith in God. So, who would like to go first, please?
Well, I'll share real quick briefly. The day Tom passed away, the day he was a radio DJ for a local radio station in your
Hmm.
town, and he always interviewed different social service agencies and the arts. That was his deal. The last person he interviewed was Scott Foster, who was involved in a group called Journey Home.
Mm.
Of course, that was at 5 o'clock. He interviewed Scott, and at 6, I called Scott at 6, and I said, "Thomas had a terrible accident. I don't think he's going to make it." He said, "Well, that just can't be. I just
Mm.
interviewed. I just talked to him at 5 o'clock." I said, and about 4:45, he fell off the steps.
Mm.
And when that all skipping, and a month later, Scott came to me and he says, "I've got to tell you something, Gloria," because he works with the homeless population, and that was one thing that Tom and I did. That we still feel that there is that addiction is a problem, but I after this experience and having trying to educate myself societally what we're in, and this kind of goes with the thing with what can I do about this.
Mm.
Scott told me that one of the common experiences for the homeless population is loss of a partner or death of a
Mm.
spouse.
Oh my.
And when I was going through this a year ago, he had 4 women in the same with the same story as I did.
Oh my.
I didn't have a family. It was that was their life experiences. And now the other thing I want you to think about, we just got through in the 2020 whatever COVID era. 1 million people died. And we've got people in on the news every day that are losing people through violence or some sort of surprise life experience. What if our God was preparing us? Phil, you've got a book. You've got people right now. We need to figure out what God is trying to tell us. We've got to figure out what the next thing is. And when Scott told me about that, even a month before, I thought, that's all I could think about is the widows that are having to redefine their life. But what if you were on the streets? What if you didn't know what the next how you were going to get? And we've known people like this. And some of them, when Tom passed away, they did it about change, and we've got some real God really did move in their lives. Literally, they were transformed and some of them really changed their lives because they were so close to him. But that's sort of finding out what to do. If you listen, the indicators are there. Does that make sense, guys? The indicators are there. What we have to do is not be so absorbed in our own grief that we don't see the turn.
Okay.
What is the turn?
Yeah.
And so
I see.
anyway.
Yeah, no, that beautifully said. John, what about you? What would you say about your faith and its its relevance or work during this time?
Well, just over the past 4 years, I think I've come to fully understand Romans 8:28, which we hear a lot. And if it's okay here, I'm gonna find it and read it if I can. Let's see here. I pulled it up now. I can't find it, but that's all right. I allow myself 6 mistakes a day. If I don't use them all, I roll them over. So Romans 8:28 is, we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him. So that's those of us who follow Jesus and are saved and have been called according to his purpose. For those God foreknew, this is Romans 8:29 now, he also predestined to be conformed to the image of his son, that he might be the firstborn among many brothers and sisters. So I've learned to count, no matter how bad it is, all joy. And instead of saying, like I did with my daughter, why did you allow this to happen, God? Now I'm a victim. I'm making God a villain. I'm learning to say, God, what do you want me to learn from this? Because you're going to use it, if I allow you to transform me more into the likeness of Christ, which is really your purpose, so I can be more salt and light in the earth and share the good news and draw people to you, God, by you working through me. Because when the pastor opened up at Natalie's funeral, if it had been just me and him, I would have punched him in the throat. He said, rejoice always, always rejoice in the Lord. That's how he opened up her funeral.
Yeah,
but now I understand it.
Yeah.
I understand that everything that God allows us to go through or I cause by my own choices, it's meant for him to transform me more into the likeness of Christ.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. Amen.
Yeah. Bethel, please.
So I think faith is hope. If I'm completely honest, I understand less now than I thought I did.
Fair enough.
Maybe it's revealed my.
Yeah. No, I can relate.
A great statement.
I'm right there with her. I don't know. I don't know what we do. What do we do?
But I think there's also the double-edged sword. The good part is I don't have to understand or know everything because I'm not God. So I can leave that up to God. And so it's not on me. So it's not that I have answers, to any of my questions. I've just relinquished the need for answers at this point.
Oh boy.
I'm thinking, well, if there, if I believe that there's a God, and I do, I don't know it now, but I will at some point. And I can free myself from that weight and to focus my energy on time on what John was saying is and Gloria is what can I do now? What
Yeah,
what
That's
am
right.
I being led to do to help others?
that's
Um,
beautiful. Yeah. So you're talking about, I mean, you just kind of defined surrendering, right? Which is what we
Ah,
know we
yeah.
should be doing, though. Jane?
I don't, every year my students have to learn a sacred Christmas song
Mm,
because none of these kids, my littles, know them anymore because they don't do Christmas
That's right.
programs. They know all the secular stuff. And
hmm
Yeah.
so a couple years ago, and I guess it was, I just decided I'm not going to let that. I mean, it's very few people, but they're hearing them in their house, and I decided I was going to try to keep sacred music alive at Christmas.
That's right.
Mm, wow.
But it's a little thing, but they
Yeah.
don't know the first
Yeah.
Noel or Joy to
Yeah.
the World or O
Yeah.
Little Town of Bethlehem. They don't know any of these. And I
Yeah.
thought, I'm going to be the one. They don't know them because no one's ever taught them.
That's
And
right.
That's exactly right.
I'm going to
Yeah.
try to
Mhm.
keep
And
sacred
what
music at
and
Christmas.
what about your faith and the role it played in
Well, my mother's and my strongest connection was through worship
hmm
music. And
Yeah.
so I will be in church almost every Sunday. I'll cry through the hymns.
Yeah.
But it's
I can confirm that. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's just I feel God in that moment.
Yeah.
Just I know
hmm
it's just
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
everything. It's how we connected, and
Yeah.
she was very faithful, and
Yes,
so
she was. Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. I wouldn't mind just sharing one thing. Now, this may seem a little bit odd, but Jane, you'll remember the story that I don't want to bring it up because I don't compare the loss of my pet to the loss of our loved ones. But I remember many years ago, um, it was 2014 when we lost Ichi, it was golden
Yes,
retriever.
I
We,
do remember
he and
that.
I were just like, and unexpectedly, I cried for days.
Yeah,
And it wasn't expected. I didn't expect to feel this much pain at the loss of a dog. I mean, it almost feels silly to talk about it. But here's the point.
mm,
I remember pulling into the driveway and I was thinking, I was really literally like going, God, this is kind of ridiculous that I'm just sobbing over the loss of my dog. And and I didn't hear this voice, but it was like a voice in my head that said, well, I mean, we're talking about love here is what we're talking about, by the way. And then I heard this. I'll never forget it. Again, I didn't hear it audibly. I don't want people to think I heard this voice come, but I heard it distinctly in the back of my mind. And it went something like this: Kevin, your pain is in direct correlation to the love that you had
that's exactly
for
right.
this. And that if you didn't care, you wouldn't cry.
That's right.
And the more love you had, the deeper the pain is. And
Mhm.
this was the last words that I heard. It was to embrace the pain. I had
Yes,
from that
right.
moment on this really odd relationship with pain that on the
Mhm.
one hand,
Mhm.
it hurt. On the other hand, I embraced it
Right.
and loved. So I wanted to throw that out. So just one last question, if you wouldn't mind, just for everybody. Please share with those out there who have lost someone who might be grieving this time of year, or especially if it's relatively new to them. I would love if you would, but you go whatever direction you want. I would love for you to share this, from the standpoint of Christ, and but maybe give them one thing that you would do, and I'll let you go wherever you would like, Gloria.
Well, I think I'm going to, an addendum to what you said. I think Jesus has told us in scripture, the Holy Spirit's told us that he is acquainted with our grief.
Mm,
And that is there for us to, if he's acquainted with our grief, well, you can see that he cried.
mm,
Jesus wept, shortest verse in the Bible. And there's so many evidences of his emotion. That was the one thing that I guess out of this I'm taking that God is not only acquainted with our grief, but he's emotional too.
mm,
And maybe grief and love are interchangeable. Because if you love someone, something so deeply, and it's so hard, maybe that is God's love. Is some
Wow.
you could it maybe grief
Yeah.
and love are interchangeable.
Yeah.
And that's why the other thing about that is that's why we probably avoid it, because we don't want to. We have this funny thing at my house: go toward the pain. Because if you can't, and Tom used to say that, go towards the pain. Don't. He said anything hidden has power over you. So you've got to get through it and be able to discuss it. But is that may be interchangeable? Grief and
Very
love may
interesting.
be interchangeable.
Yeah.
And
John,
if that be
please.
the case,
Oh,
then so that God, grief, and are interchangeable.
that's right. That's right. Yeah. Okay. That's right. John, please.
Well, I've been studying a lot on 2 Corinthians 10:5, where we're told to take our thoughts captive and bring them into obedience to God. And so, so when I start having those moments, but then I turn them to me, I just pray them and I write them out and speak them out to God, so He can show me what's true, what's noble, what's loving,
Right.
and let those thoughts go, because Christ is our comforter. There's no doubt about it. And if you want to read a psalm where David, he hasn't lost someone, but he's in a very bad emotional state, he wants to run away. Read Psalm 55, where he's literally just calling out how he feels, what he thinks, and the very last verse goes, "And I'll trust you, God.
Oh boy.
I'll trust you, God."
Right.
So know what you're going through, and that pain, it has a purpose, and seek that purpose.
Beautiful.
Amen.
Bethel, please.
I mean, I think everything has been said. I would just sum it up by saying honor the love. I always sign my book saying love always remains, right?
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Oh, you
Love
love.
always
Oh, I
remains.
love
And
that.
that is it sometimes it shows up as grief, but as Jane said earlier, sometimes it's not. Sometimes you think about the memories and it makes you smile. So honor that love.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Jane, please.
Well, I think we have to remember that God knows every part of us. We're not hiding anything.
Yeah.
So don't go through it alone. I mean, God's already there with you. Just let
Beautiful.
it be present with it.
Yeah, no, that's so beautiful. Listen, so before we go, if you don't mind, I would love, Bethel, if you would just share your book again. I think it's very important. Maybe even put it up there again and let people see the book. And I think it's a beautiful, not a Cinderella story. It's a beautiful thing. And there is a podcast from almost about a year ago or something that people should. In fact, I'll link it to this one here. But so they can go to Amazon and find it and all of that, right?
Yes, it's on Amazon, it's on Google Play,
Yeah,
and have it on Audible in the next couple of weeks. And one thing I will say about this book, again, talking about meaning,
please.
I'm donating a portion of proceeds to this nonprofit that does cancer research because
Okay.
my late husband died of a very rare cancer where there is no treatment. And
Oh
so
boy.
part of what I'm doing is supporting the work to help find a viable treatment. And so you can learn more about all of that in the book.
Beautiful. Thank you
That's
very much. And
fabulous.
John, would you do the same, please, about your book? I don't know if you have one handy, but in any event, please share
Yes, sir.
about
I
it.
think you're referencing You Are a Gift book.
Yes.
Yeah, so You Are a Gift is on Amazon. You can get it in Kindle or paperback. And a lot of people said, well, I really want to learn more about Natalie's story. And I say, you won't learn anything about Natalie's story except in the first chapter, because God used her death to awaken me that I was
Oh
still
boy.
living in the world and not in the Word. And
Mhm.
so, and again, the proceeds of my speaking and whatever we sell in products goes to the foundation, because we donate it every year to a faith-based inpatient treatment center.
Oh,
And
that's so
also
beautiful.
have a You Are a Gift coin. If you'd like one, all you got to do is DM me with your mailing address, and I will mail it to you at no cost. That's anybody.
Very good,
I'm
very
giving
good.
1,000 of those away a year. I keep them in my pocket and
Yeah.
have conversations with people around them being a gift.
And thank you so much for that, John. And Jane, just, listen, for the book that I've been telling you that you should write, what's the name of it again, please? Okay, then Gloria, what about you? Now, Gloria is a beautiful writer. And as a matter of fact, I've had the privilege of receiving texts from you since Tom died that are just so beautiful. And are you doing something with that?
Oh, Kevin, you know I'm not.
Okay. Well,
Okay. I tell you what,
well,
I will.
I'll say this. I will not volunteer to do anything more for you until you say I'm going to do something with it. This lady, and by the way, if you all don't know Gloria, don't get within 3 feet of her. I swear she will have you volunteering. I am not kidding you. So that's it. Anyways, well, listen, let me go ahead and close off here. So,
I've got 4 candidates right here.
okay, there you go.
No, but seriously, I think it does help to write thing and
Mm,
journal,
mhm. Yeah.
Lord, I just right now I'm trying to take care of a grandson. I don't know how I have time to write a
And you've
book.
done such a beautiful job with him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he is. He's my pride and joy.
Yes, he is.
He was with me when Tom passed,
Mm.
and that has
Oh, I don't
been
think I knew that.
a wonderful shared
Mm.
experience
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
we'll both take.
Yeah. The fact
I'll
that you were
never.
together. Yeah.
God was really, really good about that to take me through that and
Mm.
him through that as well.
Yeah. Well, listen, I just can't thank you all enough, really, for just again sharing your, I say beautiful story from the standpoint that if we all do trust in God and know that
Yeah,
everything
amen.
serves a purpose and there's a season for everything, you all are sharing, your season, your difficulties,
Mhm.
and now your work or your books or your words or your advice to many, many out there. And I just thank you so much. God bless you and Merry Christmas and Happy
Merry
Holidays to
Christmas to you
everybody.
all. We'll be in prayer for all of you during the holidays.
Likewise.
Merry
Beautiful.
Christmas, everybody. Thanks for
Okay.
sharing.
All right.
Mhm.
Thank you.